Welcome to the New York State Association of Counties County Official Orientation, originally designed for newly elected officials, appointed officials, or those elected officials that have been in service which wish to have a refresher. I'm Stephen Acquario, the Executive Director of the New York State Association of Counties, and on behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to welcome you all to county government and thank you for taking time to join us for this conversation. As you'll soon come to understand, county government in New York is often invisible and sometimes misunderstood by the public. Our proximity to the communities, families, and residents make us ideal service providers, yet in many ways, it's often invisible. We are the regional government closest to the people in need of government assistance. NYSAC, your statewide association, is a bipartisan entity originally created in 1925, almost 100 years ago, addressing the increased complexity of governing at the regional level in New York. They wanted to create an organization that could help them better serve their communities, and that's why they built NYSAC. Our mission today is the same as it was back in 1925. We represent, we educate, and we advocate and serve thousands of elected and appointed county officials all across New York State. The presentation you're about to hear was designed to give you some background of where counties came from and how we are operating today, our connections with state government, and how your NYSAC can help you fulfill your county function. For more in-depth discussions about the issues we'll be addressing today, we encourage you to come to the NYSAC 2020 Legislative Conference, which will be held in Albany County on January 27th to the 29th at the Desmond Hotel. And we invite you to be a complimentary guest at this conference. As you are a newly elected official, we will waive the registration fee for those that were elected in 2019. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our staff, our offices, at any point in time, simply by going on our website. As early as 1665, yes, 1665, New York's land was divided into regions or counties. The Duke's Law of 1665 created ridings or judicial districts, which served as the early version of a border or a county. Later in 1683, the General Assembly of Freeholders, convened by Governor Thomas Dongan, passed the Charter of Liberties and Privileges, which laid out how the colony should be governed. Based on the famous Magna Carta and similar to current constitutions, the original Charter of New York divided the state, or the colony, into 12 original counties, which are listed here. You could see the common theme from the names of these counties and the origin and the heritage to the British Crown. In the end, we lost 2 of those counties, one to Vermont and one to Massachusetts, but we gained several others. And today, our great state of New York has 62 counties, including the 5 boroughs that make up the city of New York. Each and every one of these counties and boroughs are members of your state association. At this time, I'd like to introduce Patrick Cummings, our NYSAC counsel. He'll talk a little bit about the state laws that govern county structures and operations. Patrick.
Thanks, Steve. I'm going to walk you through slides 4 through 9, covering the state constitution, which grants and protects the powers of local and county government. And after, I'm going to cover some groupings of state laws that help define the scope of your county government power that's granted by that constitution. Let's start with the state constitution. Adopted in 1777, this established the structure, powers, and rights of both the state and our counties. At that time, there were 14 counties. Think of our constitution, our state constitution, in a similar manner as you think about a federal constitution, in that the state constitution is the law of the land. When the state law is later passed, or a county is looking to pass a local law, or taking an action, they cannot conflict with the state constitution. Accordingly, a law that's passed by either by New York State or by your county in New York can become invalidated if it's found to be unconstitutional to either the federal or state constitution. The state constitution is not easily amended. This is part of the reason its basic structure has remained almost the same for over a century. There's two ways the state constitution can be amended. The first process is a difficult lift. The state legislature must introduce a bill indicating the change they are seeking to the Constitution, after which the state attorney general has 20 days to give a written opinion of this potential impact. After this time, the state legislature, by majority vote, must pass the bill. The following year, the legislature, again with the same bill, must pass this by majority vote. If all of this is followed, the proposal then is placed to the voter ballot, and it requires a majority vote by the people. Only then will the Constitution be amended. The second way that our state constitution can be amended is arguably even harder. This is through the action of a state constitutional convention. Every 20 years, the people of New York are asked if they would like a group of delegates to form and propose amendments to the Constitution. This is your convention. This question was asked of the people last in 2017 and was overwhelmingly shot down. Around 80% of the voters said no to this. This question will again be asked in 2037. The overall point we're making here is that the state constitution is the law of the land, and it rarely changes. State laws, however, unlike the Constitution, change all the time. One subset of state laws is called county law. County laws were first consolidated in 1892. These laws constitute the basic county organizational structure and allowing and showing counties where to start with. This is more or less a list of county positions, listing their basic duties and assignments for your county. Here is a list of original county positions. As you can see here, these were all elected positions, and as you get to know your county, and you probably know already, this has changed over time. This is a list from your 1800s. Now, some of these positions still remain. In some counties, these are still elected positions, such as your treasurer, your county clerk, your sheriff, your district attorney. Those four are unique, and I want to point those four out because those are not only listed in county consolidated law, but those are also listed in the state constitution. Therefore, those are state constitutional officers. Again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, therefore, it would be harder to change any structure necessarily with these positions, those four, unlike other county positions, which were put in place by first county law, and as later we'll discuss in this presentation, can be changed by local county law. If you notice on this list as well, judges are on this. Those have later on become either state, town, or village positions. There's no longer a county judge, even though the county judge is now a state position. The importance also to know about this, going back to the four constitutional officers, those officers, because they're constitutional positions, if those offices are ever vacated, that appointment is done by the governor, where most other county positions, when vacated, would be assigned by the legislature of who fills that in. Moving back to the state constitution, the Bill of Rights for local government. This is Article 9 of the state constitution, and as we discussed, it's very difficult to change, and this is a good thing for counties. Article 9 grants our powers and it puts out a list of what we can and can't do. The Bill of Rights for local governments is actually a really substantial list of what kind of powers we have. Here's just a few that I'll go over, just so you get a general feel. Every government shall have, this is within our state constitution, every government shall have an elected legislative body. So every county that we've got a legislative body that represents its residents. It's, as Mark LaVigne will later talk about, we've changed some of the forms in what we call our legislative bodies, but they all perform the same basic function. They get elected, and then they run the county government and represent the people of that area. In some counties, we've got a board of supervisors. Some counties, we have a legislature. Some counties, we have representatives, but they all have the same basic function. Now, the second bullet point, no government can be annexed without the approval of the voters through referendum. This is an important piece of the Bill of Rights in that your county cannot be taken away unless the people are okay with that. But this is also dealing with towns, villages, cities. These local governments are here to stay unless it is the people themselves and not the state government that looks to annex these local governments. The power to appropriate costs of government and services with the authorization of the legislature. This is a key function to every county elected legislative body. This is really the power of the budget. No matter what kind of form of government that a county has, ultimately it's the county legislature that controls the budget, okays that, and really is in control of, as a large say in what happens with property taxes, as well as what should be appropriated to perform what services within a county. You can see that we have the power of eminent domain. This is what this means is a county can actually take, in some instances, private land or property. We have to give back a reasonable fee to whatever that property owner is, but we have that power in certain cases. Also, that the power that local governments can act jointly. This is getting into an area that you're going to hear more and more about, and I think we're going to see more in coming years, called shared services. Counties and all local governments, but particularly counties, are being asked to do more with less in these times, and we do have the power to combine our powers with other local governments to perform services. We see this everything from highway maintenance to IT services, and really the NYSAC, we pride ourselves in being a place for communication where we can share these ideas. So if you ever are looking for a shared services idea going forward, please turn to us and we can help out with that. Turning back to statutes that talk about the overall state statutes now outside of the Constitution that form exactly how a county is structured. Talked a little bit about county law, that grouping. I do want to also talk about home rule law. This is really important type of defining power for a county, and let's touch upon two big areas of home rule law. One, your power for local laws, what you can and can't do, passing local laws in your county. This is going to be a main function for you. Really, it's the how and what you can do and what you're preempted is done through home rule, and counties lead the way on everything from passing local laws to stopping texting while driving, to we're even doing things that helping that passing laws that impact our local environment. Always feel free to call us also if you have any ideas or want ideas for local laws. We track and follow those closely. The other big piece of home rule is really restricting what a state can do to you. And what we mean by that is if a state is passing a law that only impacts one county, let's say yours, and not the entire state, they should be following what's called the home rule process. This means that the county first should be passing an action indicating to the state or making a request to the state that we do want this to occur. That's when your state legislature should take this. This is your home rule power and pass that authority of the state, and after which time you can adopt it. You see this often with sales tax requests increase or even maintaining what sales tax you have. Those are also often called home rule requests, but this all is granted through your home rule power. The other main piece of all of this, whether it be county law or home rule, is we've got the overall power to really form our county government in whichever way we see fit. we've got a lot of flexibility on how we perform that structure. We still have to provide the same basic services that the state wants us to provide, but how we set up our county government structure is something that is within our power, and one major way we get there is through county charter laws and county charter formation and reform. I'm going to introduce Mark LaVigne, our NYSAC Deputy Director, and he will explain county charter laws.
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick closed with the Home Rule law that authorizes counties to develop and implement their own governance structure, or a charter form of government. We have 23 counties that have adopted their own unique charter forms of government. Their charters establish their particular governance structure. 18 of those counties provide for an elected executive. One includes a mayor, the consolidated government known as the City of New York. The other 4 have designated an administrator or manager to help lead the day-to-day operations of the county. These charters also provide for the size of their board of legislators. The other counties are governed and structured by the state's county law. In terms of legislative bodies, we have 16 counties that operate as boards of supervisors, 40 counties that have a board of legislators, and 1 county, Otsego, that operates as a board of representatives. In a board of supervisor county, the members have a dual role. They serve as the chief elected official for the town and also as a county representative 1 or 2 days a week. Legislators and representatives serve the same function. They represent districts with an equal share of the population and fulfill the one person, one voter requirement determined by the Supreme Court in the 1960s, when many of these boards of legislators came into existence. All of them serve as the legislative body of a county. All are empowered to enact or repeal local laws and resolutions, to make appropriations, levy taxes, and incur debt. They are empowered to adopt an administrative code and the rules and regulations for the county's, the board's conduct and procedures, as your county will do or has done already early in 2020. As mentioned, we have 18 counties with an elected executive. The executive appoints department heads with confirmation of the legislature. They manage the internal operations of all departments within the county. They oversee the day-to-day operations of the county government. They also serve as the chief budget officer and can veto actions of the legislative body. We have 20 counties with an administrator and 11 counties with a manager. These administrators or managers are appointed by the legislative body and serve at its pleasure. They are delegated with administrative functions. Most of them prepare their annual budgets for submission to the legislative body, and they oversee the day-to-day operations of county governments. Finally, our last form of county government are the 9 counties that provide administration through the legislative body. The chair is delegated by the board for administrative authority over the day-to-day operations of the county government. This body may also appoint an administrative assistant to the board chair to help with that day-to-day operational supervision. Most of these counties have a very strong committee system that is established to provide oversight over the departments within the county. That's us at the county level. And just a reminder, we, counties, were here before the state of New York because we were created nearly 100 years before the Declaration of Independence. Ryan Gregoire, NYSAC's legislative coordinator, will pick up the state side of things. And this is important for you to know because the state is empowered to mandate costs and programs on all local governments, including counties.
Thank you, Mark. I want to start off by talking to you about the two branches of state government that NYSAC actively works with, and that's the executive branch headed by our governor, Andrew Cuomo, who's in his third 4-year term. The legislative branch, which is split between the New York State Senate, headed by Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who's the Senate Majority Leader, and that branch of government is comprised of 63 members. The current party split is 40 Democrats, who represent the majority, and 22 Republicans, one of those seats being vacant. The Assembly, which is headed by Carl Heastie, is a legislative body comprised of 150 members, of which 106 are Democrats, 43 are Republicans, and 1 is an independent who caucuses with the Democrats and also happens to be the chair of the Assembly Local Governments Committee. One key fact to note is Andrea Stewart-Cousins, the leader of the Senate, is also a former Westchester County legislator and the deputy chair of that body. The state budget and legislative process occurs on an annual basis, and on your screen there's 2 maps. The left represents the New York State Senate districts, and the right is the New York State Assembly districts. You'll notice that these maps are different in geographic size and, of course, the population that's represented in each district, and that's because the size of each house of the legislative chamber is different. The Senate has 63 members, the Assembly has 150 members. Redistricting occurs every 10 years after the census results are announced. For New York City members, the political world is often seen as everything north of the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge is upstate, rural, and Republican. For upstate members, everything south of Albany and the lower Hudson Valley is considered more New York City-centric and liberal. I want to take a moment to cover the state budget and legislative timeline. This annual legislative session begins with the governor's State of the State address, which this year will occur on January 8th. The governor outlines his priorities in this message, and that gives NYSAC and other interest groups a sense of what the governor is going to be proposing in his executive budget, which comes out later in January. The governor can submit 21-day and 30-day budget amendments, and the legislature holds public hearings on the budget impact. I do want to note that the governor in New York State has a tremendous amount of authority in developing the narrative around the priorities for the state's fiscal year. Through negotiations with both houses, ultimately they come to a decision by April 1st, which is when the new state budget takes effect. However, it's the governor who proposes the state budget in the first instance, and he really sets the narrative for that upcoming year. For the rest of the session, the legislature passes hundreds of bills through both houses and thousands of bills through their individual one houses. The state legislative session concludes in the month of June. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Lucas, the NYSAC Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and Finance. Dave is going to cover the state budget in the process around the formation of that document.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to cover the state budget and fiscal calendars, as Ryan mentioned. And it's important to note the reasons why counties care about the state budget is because we deliver so many services on behalf of the state, in addition to providing our own local discretionary services at the local level. The state budget has a direct impact on county budgets and operations, mainly because of the funding that's provided through the state budget and the requirements that we have to implement on behalf of the state. You'll get a briefing on your own budget from your budget folks in your county, but it's not unusual for more than 70% of a typical county's budget to be state mandated or federally mandated programs. And a word about fiscal years. The state, we're operating with multiple different fiscal years at any given time. The state fiscal year operates from April 1st to March 31st. We are the only state in the country that uses that fiscal year. The federal fiscal year is October 1st to September 30th, and a typical county fiscal year is based on a calendar year, January 1 to December 31st. At any given time in all three of these different fiscal years we've noted, you could be really operating in three separate fiscal years. You're closing out a prior year, you're operating with the current year, and you're planning for the coming year. So there's a lot of activity around the fiscal years that's very important to know. Okay, for the state budget, we talked a little bit about it before, but the governor can submit the executive budget on or before the third Tuesday after the first Monday in January. This usually includes the appropriation bills, revenues, and how they'll be raised. Any reappropriations would also be within those appropriation bills. And then there's Article 7 language, which is also submitted with the budget, which is basically the boilerplate that explains how the appropriations are to be spent. Within the executive budget, the governor's prerogative, he has the ability to amend his budget after it's been submitted, and he usually does it 21-day amendments or 30-day amendments. He does not have to do them, or she does not have to do them at that time, but it is their prerogative. Once the budget's submitted, the legislature begins to conduct hearings on it. These are usually led by the Senate Finance Committee and the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, and they do them jointly. The two committees meet together. The committees will hold budget hearings on individual functional areas within the budget. They'll do a hearing on transportation, on education, on local governments. At the local government hearing, that's where county government would testify on the budget and talk about how it impacts county governments. That's something NYSAC does here through the executive director and through the president of the association. Also during this period, we would be doing a lot of reach out to the legislature on how we think the budget impacts us beyond just the testimony. So during that process can last a few weeks, beginning once it's released, and you'll leads us into February and then into March. And then what usually happens in the March timeframe, as negotiations start to clamp down, each house will pass what they call a one-house budget bill. Sometimes they'll drop the entire budget, rewriting the governor's entire budget. Sometimes they'll just pass a resolution, depending on how much time they have. And it basically puts out their preferred blueprint for spending for each of the chambers. It's sort of a starting point of negotiations between the two houses and the governor's office. Once those budgets are dropped, the one-house budget bills, they establish conference committees that would be set up to handle different portions of the budget based on functional areas. There could be a public safety conference committee, a committee of the whole, which is usually led by the state leadership in the Assembly and the Senate. And they could have other different conference committees. And they would meet together to hash out the differences between the governor and the individual one-house budget bills. That period could take anywhere from a week to 10 days, with the ultimate goal of passing it by April 1st to ensure it's an on-time budget. And just to note, in those overall, the legislature cannot alter an appropriations bill submitted by the governor except to strike an item or reduce items therein. They can also add funding to an individual budget item that's already in the budget as submitted by the governor. We do have a lot of NYSAC budget advocacy, and it occurs all year long, to be honest. We begin in the fall because during the fall, the governor and his staff are working on the budget for the coming April 1st fiscal year in the following year. So they're already starting to look at how they want to structure their budget for the following year. At that time, NYSAC will reach out to the governor's office and the division of budget here to talk about our priorities. Our priorities are usually developed from our fall seminar at the time when the counties meet and they pass resolutions, which forms the basis of our physical asks or desires in the budget and legislative process. So we use that as a template when we work with the division of the budget. And then, as we said before, in January, the governor releases his budget, and then we develop our testimony and budget fact sheets for the county officials so they can understand how it might impact. Testify, as we mentioned, and then we go through the process in February and March of meeting with the legislature, executive chamber, staff, state agencies, outside entities that may have a common purpose to ours. And then also in April, once the budget is passed, NYSAC will do a comprehensive analysis of it in aggregate. And we also do individual county by county reports on how the budget will impact your county. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Ryan.
Thank you, Dave. Dave just covered the process and timeline of standing committees in NYSAC policy development. But what do the standing committees actually look like? What do they do? Who are they made up of? What's the policy priorities that come out of each one of these committees? At this time, I want to take a moment to go over the 11 different committees, and we're going to turn it over to staff to discuss their particular committees that they work on here at NYSAC. NYSAC standing committees are the primary vehicle for advancing policy at the state level. NYSAC uses our standing committees as a tool and engages with the membership, the NYSAC membership, to develop the concerns of county operations, services, policies, and budget implications. They include the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Standing Committee, Children with Special Needs, Economic Development, Environment and Energy, Intergovernmental Affairs, Medicaid and Human Services, Native American Affairs and Gaming, Public Employee Relations, Public Health and Mental Health, Public Safety, Taxation and Finance, and Transportation and Public Works. I want to take a moment to cover two committees that I primarily have jurisdiction over, and that's the Children with Special Needs and Public Safety Standing Committee. Children with Special Needs, the committee is comprised of members throughout counties in New York State who are either directly impacted in their core job functions, such as EI program directors, or county legislators who may have an interest in these policy areas. And I want to note that this program, which comprises special needs pre-K and early intervention services, represents one of those top 10 state programs that counties fund. Dave just mentioned a lot of county budgets are spent providing funding for state and federal programs. This is one of those areas that consumes a large portion of county budgets. The other committee, Public Safety, this is one of NYSAC's largest committees as far as membership goes currently. We have county sheriffs, county legislators, county emergency managers, county executives who sit on this committee. And the focus of this committee is to address areas of concern with respect to public safety, sheriff operations, jail operations, emergency management. And this year we'll be paying particular attention to a package of bills and initiatives to address EMS and firefighter recruitment and retention challenges. The last committee before kicking this over to Alex LaMonte that I wanted to talk about was mental health. And Alex and I worked together on the Public Health Mental Health Standing Committee here at NYSAC. And we also work in close connection with two of our affiliate organizations, NYSACHO, who represents county health officials, and CLMHD, who represents the county local mental hygiene directors. In the mental health program, we're really focused on addressing county concerns as far as providing services to individuals who need mental health or who have mental health challenges. And we actively work with both houses of the legislature and the governor's office to advance proposals that will help counties with the administration of that program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex LaMonte, NYSAC's research analyst, to discuss public health and a couple of her other standing committee assignments before heading back to the other staff. Alex?
Thank you, Ryan. So I'd like to expand on a few public health issues that Ryan mentioned. First, lead. So in 2019, New York State lowered the threshold for an elevated blood lead level, and this resulted in a 6-fold increase in the number of children requiring public health interventions. The state budget included only $9 million to perform these interventions, which left 80% of the cost, or about $36 million, to be paid by county governments. So in 2020, the Public Health Mental Health Standing Committee will be focused on getting $46 million to the lead poisoning prevention program to both ensure successful implementation and protect children with elevated blood lead levels. We will also ask for a restoration of Article 6 reimbursement to New York City, which was reduced from 36% to 20% in the 2019 state budget. Finally, it seems likely that adult-use cannabis will be legalized in the 2020 legislative session. This legislation will place new responsibilities and service requirements on county public health and mental health departments, as well as consumer protection, economic development, law enforcement, and other county departments. We have asked the state to provide additional resources to deal with local impacts to public health in other areas. The next standing committee for which I am the staff liaison is Agriculture and Rural Affairs. Our top issues here are the Farm Laborers Fair Practices Act, hemp production, dairy supplemental prices, and agriculture education. Two issues I'd like to expand upon are the farm workers legislation and hemp. The Farm Laborers Fair Labor Practices Act will take effect on January 1st, 2020. This bill grants collective bargaining rights, workers' compensation, and unemployment benefits to farm laborers. It also provides for unemployment insurance, 24 hours of consecutive rest each week, overtime pay, and a sanitary code for farm labor housing. Our Standing Committee on Agriculture and Rural Affairs recommended a number of amendments to the legislation. We sent these to the governor and legislature for their consideration in the 2020 legislative session. In relation to hemp, this month the governor signed legislation that establishes a state permitting process for growers, producers, and sellers of hemp. There are over 600 authorized growers across the state. When it takes effect in March 2020, the bill will require laboratory testing of hemp products, including CBD, and labeling to protect consumers from potential harms from this product. We'll be tracking this legislation in 2020 with a focus on public health and economic development impacts. Next, economic development, environment, and energy. Our top priorities related to these issues are shovel-ready sites, allowing IDAs to provide grants and loans, broadband access, recycling and e-waste, battery stewardship, water contaminants, and the bottle bill. A few things I'd like to highlight are the statewide plastic bag ban, which will take effect on March 1st, 2020. Counties will be allowed to opt into a 5-cent fee on paper bags. If they do, 3 cents will go to the State Environmental Protection Fund, or EPF, and 2 cents will stay with the county for the purposes of distributing reusable bags. I'd also like to touch on the CLCPA. This is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. This sweeping legislation calls for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 40% compared to 1990 levels by 2030. As part of the legislation, the state is required to convene a 22-member Climate Action Council, which will have 2 years to draft a plan for achieving these reductions. Finally, IDA oversight and transparency. We anticipate legislation to address these two issues in 2020. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Deputy Director, Mark LaVigne.
Thank you, Alex. The two standing committees that I serve as liaison for are the Intergovernmental Affairs Standing Committee and the Transportation and Public Works Standing Committee. On intergovernmental affairs, we have a range of county officials, including clerks of county boards, administrators and managers, department heads, and legislators and supervisors. At the last meeting of the Intergovernmental Affairs Standing Committee, we discussed the items listed here and we will be continuing to advocate on behalf of counties for these issues, including increasing state funding for community colleges, maintaining state funding for early voting operations. Last year was the first year we had early voting. We will have 3 elections in 2020, the presidential primary, the primary in June, and then the general election in November. And we will have early voting operations for each of those elections. So it's important for us to maintain at least the same amount of state funding that we had in 2019. This is the committee that also covers the policies surrounding the state's countywide shared services initiative. And we often have a speaker that addresses the countywide shared services. And we are also advocating through this committee to make it more efficient for local governments to create health insurance consortium. This has been a long-standing advocacy issue for this committee, and we will continue to fight for changes to the Article 47 health insurance law in 2020. I also cover the Transportation and Public Works Standing Committee. This year is a year that the legislature will pass a 5-year DOT capital plan. So every 5 years they pass this. It's an important document that determines the spending level and the priorities for the road and bridge infrastructure for the coming 5 years. And every year, especially in upstate New York, we try to get that DOT capital plan to match the same amount that the state is planning to spend for the MTA program in New York City. So we will be taking up a resolution in support of that in January. We will also be looking to reauthorize funding for the competition to revitalize our airports, to increase CHIPS funding, and to give municipalities flexible for more in-house projects through the CHIPS program. I invite you to consider coming to either one of these standing committees on January 27th. Thank you.
Hi again, this is Patrick Cummings. One of the committees that I help with is Native American Affairs and Gaming. A big topic that we've been looking at and trying to help with the issue is from 2017, there's been a dispute with the Seneca Nation and the state of New York. The Seneca Nation has gaming facilities in western New York, and under their compact, they do a revenue sharing with these gaming facilities with the state, and in turn, through the state budget, they help fund some of the infrastructure for our local counties and local governments through this sharing agreement. In 2017, with this dispute, the Seneca Nation stopped paying the state, and in turn, the counties themselves stopped getting the funding that they got from the state. This is upwards of $50 million a year that these 16 western counties get from this compact and agreement to the state. Right now, this is still in litigation in court on exactly with this dispute. Ultimately, we would like to see a resolution of this, so to ensure that the funding continues to the counties from the state to help with our local services. A second issue that's come up, and we are really expecting this to come again in 2020, is the potential for mobile sports gaming. As in addition to the gaming facilities in western New York with the Seneca Nation, there are other Native American casinos, as well as 4 private casinos currently in New York. And with all of these, a county gets a piece of that revenue sharing. The potential for mobile sports gaming to come in, so the ability for one to be able to bet over their phone. That could have an impact on all these gaming facilities. It could have an impact on the services we might need to provide, especially in health, potentially mental health, our DSS services, if depending on how this plays out. But it also can impact the revenue stream that's currently happening from those facilities, as well as already established gaming sites such as horse racing, OTBs. What our main concern with our committee is looking at is, if mobile gaming does come, we'd like there to be some kind of sharing arrangement that we're protecting the entities that are still that are in existence currently, the gaming facilities, as well as make sure that we're able to offset any increased services that might come from this from on a county level, and to continue the revenue stream for the county. A second committee that I help with is the Public Employee Relations Committee. We look at multiple issues there. We've got 3 listed in front of you that we predict that you're also going to see again in 2020. One is the reform of what's called the scaffold law. This is a unique law to New York State. Our members push us every year to keep bringing this up because it's an important one to have reform. It drives up insurance costs and construction costs. And when I say our members push it, it's really, especially you see the members, county members that are on the border of the state. We've gotten reports that this law alone has impacted whether or not a project happens within that county or the border, whether it be Massachusetts or Pennsylvania on a construction project. We also are pushing for 2 home rule authority laws, and this, I know I talked about home rule a bit before. There is a flip to that, and sometimes we need to ask the state to help us with something we're looking for. When we're looking for home rule authority, at times we're looking for them to grant permanent home rule authority. We'd like just the ability to control certain type of actions without having to go to the state. One of them is, especially in the Adirondack counties, but I think all counties like to explore this, and that's looking for a county-wide EMS-related districts, if a county so chooses. The second home rule authority we're looking for is further authority on setting our own employee residency rules. Under Public Officers Law, Section 103, or Section 3, I'm sorry. Quite often, our employees need to live within the county they work in. And while this is a good policy in that we'd like to see the salaries and that we're paying stay and buy locally and live locally, there are times where we'd like the county to have flexibility on this, especially with expanding fields, with the new criminal justice reforms, as well as indigent defense service requirements that are having us go out and hire more and more licensed attorneys. Sometimes this can get to be a difficult ask in smaller counties. They'd like to be able to have a bigger pool of potential people that they can hire. The third issue that I focus on is with the justice system. There's quite a bit of different things we're pushing for in reform here. We'd like the state to fully fund the DA salary increases. As I mentioned earlier, the county back 100 years ago or so, or actually the county court was a county judge, was a county position. Later on, the state tied both the district attorney salary with the county court judge. When the state took over the county court judge, they never changed that law. It's the one unique position where the state actually controls the salary of the district attorney through the salary of their own county judge. Traditionally, because of this, any increases the state used to cover, because they're the ones that set the salary, they used to cover those increases when they increased the county court judge. In 2014, the state stopped doing this. We would like them to continue with paying for those increases. We're also seeking for parental representation, counsel, and family court for the state to cover that. As many know, counties provide counsel for those that cannot afford to do so in criminal court. We also provide them counsel in family court. The state does cover Council for Children. We're looking for help with funding with for the parents that are in family court as well. And lastly, we're looking to expand veteran treatment diversion courts to all our counties. Currently, these courts are in less than half our counties. They all counties have what's called drug diversion courts, and so it's the idea being if one gets arrested and the judge feels that the underlying crime might have occurred because of within the case of drug court, substance abuse, perhaps getting the individual help, getting off the substance would be better than jail, and they'll help with those services. Same concept is being applied with veterans that at times might have difficulty readjusting after combat, coming back, help them getting services if they're accused of a crime. We feel that this should definitely be in all counties. This is just a matter of getting more funding from the state to buy into this and really help with OCA, the court system, with training on doing this. And we definitely think this is a lift that we can do in 2020 and beyond.
Hi, this is Dave Lucas, and I'm the staff liaison for the last two committees we'll talk about here, or standing committees. The first is Medicaid and Human Services. This committee deals with topics related to the Medicaid program, which is one of the biggest county expenses or mandated services we're required to provide on behalf of the state and the federal government. And also we cover a lot of program areas in social services, which again is also a pretty big expense area for counties. Social services covers a lot of different areas, from the typical programs that you would think of: TANF, safety net, foster care, child welfare, adult protective care. There's a lot of different program areas in there, and even housing are big issues there. And the committee membership here is typical of the other standing committees. But we do have, in addition, you'll see a large number of social service commissioners on the committee, health commissioners, local public health commissioners, and other department heads that have a direct interest in either of these programs. This year, given the state budget quandary, there's a $6 billion budget deficit for 2021 that's being projected at this time, with $4 billion of the shortfall falling in the Medicaid program. So since we are a major payer and administrator within that program, one of our key priorities in the coming year is to make sure the county Medicaid cap is not broken or raised. At this time, Medicaid costs are capped for counties. They do not grow. In the past, they grew as a percentage of the size of the program. And in 2005, they were capped and to grow at a set percentage going forward each year. And then under Governor Cuomo in 2015, the county Medicaid costs stopped growing. They froze in time. And we want to maintain that commitment as such. It's a very large expenditure. Homelessness has become a big problem, not just in New York City, but in other areas of the state where affordable housing is causing problems, and there's other conditions where people end up being homeless. People that end up homeless usually come into your social service programs at your county level, and finding them shelter or permanent housing is a top priority, and that's something that we'll be pushing for. Family support services in general across the board, whether they stem from homelessness or other problems within the home, the counties deal with that. And we want to work with the state and the federal government in ensuring there's no additional fiscal burdens placed on the state, and hoping to ease program flexibility so it's a little bit easier to administer some of these programs. Another thing that's been happening to the dynamic with the federal government is some of the federal government is deciding to pull back funding or their resources in some of these federally designed social service programs and even Medicaid, which states also provide in conjunction with the federal government. We are calling on the state that if the federal government withdraws its funding support, that county should be held harmless in that process. That if the state chooses to continue those types of programs and services without federal aid, the state should pick up the cost for those programs. The other committee I'm staff liaison to is the Taxation and Finance. This committee deals with all different types of taxation, whether it's state taxation or local home rule issues on tax. So this committee will deal with trying to find additional revenue streams for the counties or boosting existing revenue streams in some way, whether it's a local tax or a fee we may generate on behalf of the state. We'd like to keep a larger share of that. That addresses the first bullet there about getting increased revenues from DMV services we provide. We also talk about unfunded mandates and how it impacts county government in this committee. So we're always looking to work with the state in partnership to lower costs. One of our biggest priorities this year will be trying to get permanent sales tax authority on our existing sales tax rates. Right now, we have to come back to the state legislature every 2 years for permission to maintain our sales tax rate. New York City has had the ability to have local control over their sales tax for more than a decade, and we would like to be granted that same authority. There's some other proposals here we're looking at as well that will be addressed in the coming session. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Mark.
So there's a lot in all that we just covered, and things change pretty rapidly, or can change pretty rapidly during a state legislative session throughout a year. So there are ways that we encourage you to keep involved. We're doing a lot on your behalf here at the New York State Association of Counties, and we want to share what we're doing with you because we serve you as our members. So the first thing you could do is sign up for Counties in the News, which is a daily email summary of news articles from newspapers, radio stations, television stations across the state of New York. And we categorize those stories by region. And those are published, mailed to you electronically through your email before noon every day. The other thing you can subscribe to is our NYSAC Weekly Wire, which is a subscription-based weekly summary of legislative happenings in Albany and Washington. So if there is breaking news on bills, on budgets in Albany or at the national level, that they will be included, that impact counties, they will be included in the county perspective. We also have the NYSAC Legislative Program and Platform, which are available on our website. Of course, we have our website, which you can access all of this information on our website. And then we do reports and white papers on virtually almost everything that we discussed today. We will have a report, a white paper, or a fact sheet on the items that were addressed. And all of those will be designed to help you understand the impact of those issues on county governments and our recommendations for how the state or the national government can help support counties in New York State. Finally, we have the NYSAC News Magazine. The latest edition is the Winter Edition 2020, which will be coming out at the Legislative Conference in January. And every year we publish a directory that includes all of the elected and appointed county officials across the state at the county level. Now I would like to turn it over to Jeanette Stanziano, our Director of Education and Training, to talk about a core part of our mission.
Thank you, Mark. As Mark mentioned, education is part of NYSAC's overall mission statement. NYSAC, I think, would very much like you to see this association as your go-to resource for training, development, anything that has to do with furthering your education in your field of interest in county government. NYSAC offers 5 different types of platforms for training throughout the year. Obviously, our statewide conferences are a very big part of our educational platform. We offer two major statewide conferences a year that appeal to all levels of county government. The first being our annual legislative conference, which is traditionally held in late January, early February. This program is a 2.5-day statewide event that offers cutting-edge workshops, usually about 25 sessions throughout the 2.5-day program. Very much a workhorse conference. There is these are not just social events. These are hardcore training events. We want to make sure that county government officials that are able to get the funding to come to these conferences, that they leave feeling like it was a value well spent on an investment in their education. The general statewide conferences offer not only a series of at least 25 workshops, but we also offer at least 2 keynote sessions with prominent national speakers. We also, as other staff members have described to you today, we hold our standing committee sessions throughout this conference on the first day, which sets up and sets into motion the entire NYSAC legislative program. So these statewide conferences are very, very important. So we offer one in late January, which is the NYSAC Legislative Conference. Obviously, it's always held here in Albany during the state legislative session. Our other statewide conference is our annual fall seminar, which is traditionally offered in late September, and that conference moves around the state into various counties to give all of our members an opportunity to host this event. The layout of the fall seminar is very similar to the legislative conference in the sense that we offer 2.5 days of educational programs, keynote sessions, networking programs, and other sessions that are education-based, like plenaries, and other events that are tied to other councils and committees, like the Women's Leadership Council, the County Government Institute, as well as sessions from Intercounty. So these are both very important kind of bookends to our training program throughout the year. In early May, NYSAC offers a small niche program which is very important to finance officials around New York State, and that is the annual County Finance School. That conference is held in conjunction with a very important historic partnership with the New York State Comptroller's Office. The sessions at that particular conference are certified for CPA credits for county treasurers, comptrollers, budget officials, and other finance officials around county government around the state. This conference is traditionally held in central New York, in Syracuse, to give proximity for everybody to be able to access this relatively in an easy way. This conference also offers, as do our major statewide conferences, large exhibit halls, which also enable county government officials to network with service providers that they would be interested in for services for their county. In addition to statewide conferences, NYSAC offers a regular menu of webinars throughout a typical 12-month calendar year. Just to give you an example of what that typically looks like, here are some topics that we've offered in the last 10 months. Flood preparedness and response, which was just actually offered earlier today. PFAs and local landfills, commercial clean energy financing, public sector labor relations and collective bargaining, 2020 census and how it will affect your county, food waste diversion, the dairy crisis and New York State farmers, countywide EMS systems, single-use plastic bags and where we go with this program now that it's in place, election law reforms, and New York State sexual harassment laws and providing training for your county. This is just a snapshot of the last 10 months. We sometimes offer these programs multiple times throughout a single month, and they are completely free to our membership. They usually last about an hour and 15 minutes, and it's a great opportunity for you to continue your training without having to travel to Albany or to any other part of the state. People who participate in these webinars are experts in their fields, and it's a great way to continue your training just in any typical week. NYSAC also offers a certification program called the County Government Institute. The County Government Institute was founded on the 3 pillars of good government: leadership, integrity, and accountability. Through courses and training within these pillars, CGI prepares rising and experienced county leaders for the challenges counties face and equips them to engage in informed, constructive, and civil dialogue. The Institute is a partnership between NYSAC and Cornell University's Community and Regional Development Institute. NYSAC has been working with Cornell since CGI's inception, and we have had many, many years of successful county graduates who have pursued this extensive training throughout the year. Most of the training can be secured through our conferences, through certified sessions. We also offer a lot of these trainings in a webinar format, in addition to offering any member who would like to be a part of this session. If they are part of our other program called the On-Demand Training Program, we give them free registration for this certification program as well. So another topic that is new to NYSAC, but is a very exciting extension of our education mission, is our on-demand training. So what is on-demand training? On-demand training is a response to the nature of work as it is constantly evolving, and we'd like to regularly invest in training that is essential to keep up with the needs and the rapid pace of the world in which we work. NYSAC's developed a new and exciting educational initiative to meet the ever-changing training needs of county officials through a program of on-demand training. It's simple. We offer an extensive next-level learning portal to a cornucopia of vital training topics essential to your county workforce. And most of these sessions are certification-based and are accessible through online portal access. Your county staff will be able to plug into private in-person training programs, on-demand webinars, and live video presentations from the convenience of your county and according to your own staff scheduling needs for unlimited usage. To register for any of these programs, please contact NYSAC at any time, and you will be directed to the proper staff member who can hook you up with all of these essential trainings. What NYSAC hopes is that you will continue to view NYSAC as your one-stop portal for education and the continuation of the growth of your position within your county in terms of educational needs.
Thank you, Jeanette. This is Mark LaVigne, your Deputy Director. 10 years ago, counties charged NYSAC with looking for programs and services that can help them save money or improve services at the local level. And we have done just that. Some of these partnership programs provide fees to NYSAC in exchange for endorsements, marketing support, and program oversight, and for the right to be the exclusive provider of the products under the program, which is a common practice in the public sector market. These fees help to stabilize dues for member counties and benefit member counties through our ability to improve and expand the services, education, and trainings that we provide on an ongoing basis. So some of these programs that we encourage you counties to look at, if not to improve your own services locally or save money, then to provide a forum for competition with the programs and services that your county is already participating in. Some of the programs include the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, which provides property and casualty insurance for over 900 local governments, including now 35 counties. The Public Employer Risk Management Association, or PERMA, provides a workers' compensation solution for counties and local governments across the state. Nationwide Retirement Services provides employees with retirement savings opportunities. ProAct is a pharmaceutical benefit management company that provides a discount drug card program for residents and that lowers prescription costs for both residents and county employees. We have a purchasing card with PFM. We also started recently the New York State Volunteer Firefighter Cancer Benefit Program. We have a dental network card program and a New York safety program, which provides driver safety programs online and in person in counties across the state. 3 new programs that you'll see in 2020. Cash Vest by 3+1, which helps counties identify savings opportunities that could help them invest their current cash flow to generate interest income at the county level. The School Bus Stop Arm Camera Safety Program by Vera Mobility, which is a new program that NYSAC helped create based on a state law enacted in 2019. Finally, we are launching in 2020 the Municipal Healthcare Financing Collective, which is providing 3 counties an opportunity to collectively purchase stop-loss insurance for their self-insured healthcare program. So we're always looking for new programs, but these programs we believe are the best in the state, and they can provide your county with some savings or improvements, or they can provide you with competition to your existing programs and services. Thank you very much. I will turn it back over to Stephen Acquario, our Executive Director, to close this session.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to all the NYSAC staff for the great job today. And most importantly, thank you to our listeners, to our newly elected officials and appointed officials who are listening to this presentation. As you can see from the breadth of knowledge and information that's provided by NYSAC to you, it's a one-stop shop. And I encourage you, I guarantee it, that if you come to our conferences, to your statewide associations conferences, both in Albany County and around the state, you will learn simply by being in the same room with your peers from around the state. We offer cutting-edge educational forums at these events, and with the knowledge that you learned on the origins and history of county governments, to their ability to pass local laws and resolutions, the structure and forms of county government, the legislative process, the budget process, how the standing committees of NYSAC function, you will fit right in. And thank you again to Mark LaVigne for talking about the programs and services that the association offers on your behalf. We encourage you to take a look at those programs. And again, thank you very much and welcome to county government.